My name is Mara Quinn, and if you want to understand why revenge is sometimes the only form of justice left, you need to know what happened when I was 17. For the first 15 years of my life, it was just me and my dad. My mother died when I was 9, and after that, we clung to each other in our grief. He tried, badly, sometimes, to braid my hair for school pictures, to burn pancakes on Sunday mornings until they were finally edible, to sit with me at night when I couldn't sleep. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. I believed he loved me enough to see me, even when the world didn't. When I turned 15, everything changed. My father met Delia, and with her came her son, Evan, a boy 3 years younger than me. He was small, quiet in front of adults, the picture of politeness at the dinner table. To them, he was a fragile boy still adjusting to his parents' divorce. To me, he was something else entirely. Behind closed doors, Evan was a saboteur. He'd sneak into my room and move things, then act shocked when my father found my sketchbook carelessly left outside or a library book torn. He poured juice onto my science project once, and when I cried about it, he widened his innocent eyes and said, "Maybe Mara's just clumsy." Delia would sigh and agree. My father would shake his head and tell me to stop blaming Evan for everything. For 2 years, this was my reality. Death by 1,000 cuts, small lies, invisible traps, punishments that seemed to fall only on me. If I raised my voice, I was dramatic. If I stayed silent, I was brooding. Evan played the victim so well that I started to doubt my own sanity. And then, the lie escalated. I was 17. Evan was 14. He wanted my room, the bigger one, with the bay window and space for my desk. His own room, tucked in the back, felt too small. He'd been complaining about it for months. One night, while my father was at work late, Evan went downstairs to Delia, shaking, pale, playing his role to perfection. He told her I had touched him in ways no sister should. By the time my father got home, the story had already calcified. I remember the kitchen light that night, harsh, yellow, showing every crack in my world. Delia's face was tight with outrage, her arm protectively around her son. Evan wouldn't even look at me, his eyes glued to the floor like a child too traumatized to speak further. "It's not true," I shouted, my throat raw. "He's lying. He just wants my room, Dad, you know this." My father didn't meet my eyes. "We can't take risks," he said quietly. "Risks?" I felt the floor tilt beneath me. "I'm your daughter." Delia's voice cut through mine, "and he is a vulnerable boy. You've always been too rough with him." That was it. No trial, no chance to defend myself. Just a verdict delivered in whispers and narrowed eyes. I was told to pack a bag. "Until things calm down," my father said. But we all knew what it really meant. I went upstairs, my hands shaking so badly I could barely pull clothes from drawers. Evan leaned against the doorframe of my room, soon to be his, with a smirk so quick I almost thought I imagined it. "You always thought you were smarter than me," he murmured. "Guess not." I should have screamed, thrown something, dragged him into the light of his own lie. Instead, I zipped my duffel bag and walked out, because sometimes silence is the only dignity left. The rain was coming down hard that night, slicking the porch steps, plastering my hair to my face. My father stood in the doorway, rigid, his hand on Delia's shoulder. He didn't hug me. He didn't even look me in the eye. "Where will you go?" he asked. "Does it matter?" I said, my voice breaking. And then I left. At 17, exiled from the only home I'd ever known, carrying nothing but clothes, schoolbooks, and the memory box my mother had filled for me years before. If not for Tara, my best friend, I don't know what would have happened. Her parents took me in, gave me a bed, told me I wasn't crazy. Without them, I would have been a statistic. With them, I became a survivor. That was 15 years ago. 15 years since a boy's lie and a father's cowardice rewrote my life. I built myself from scratch. I worked, I studied, I carved out a life brick by brick. I own my house now, A house bigger than the one I was banished from, a house where no one else decides whether I belong. But ghosts don't stay buried. And one Sunday morning, those same faces, the father who betrayed me and the stepmother who fed his doubts, stood on my porch asking me for help. Help for Evan. The boy who ruined me. 15 years. That's how long it had been since I walked out of my father's house with rain on my face and betrayal dripping down my spine. 15 years since I'd been told, without a trial, that my presence was too dangerous to keep under their roof. In those years, I earned a degree, worked double shifts, and built a career brick by brick. I learned how to sell homes to families who reminded me of what I'd lost and how to renovate broken spaces into something livable again. And when I finally bought my own house, a 2-story craftsman with white oak floors, light pouring through bay windows, and a study I filled with shelves, I made a promise: no one would ever take this from me. Which is why, when the doorbell rang on a quiet Sunday morning, and I opened it to find Edward Quinn and Delia standing there like revenants, my first instinct was to slam it shut. Age had worked on them both. My father's once dark hair was now entirely gray, his posture sagging under invisible weight. Delia's beauty had hardened into something sharp, like glass that cuts when you touch it. But they still carried the same aura, the one that whispered authority, that told me at 17 I had no choice but to leave. Mara, my father said, and hearing him say my name after so many years made something bitter rise in my throat. We'd like to talk. You have 10 minutes, I answered. My voice was calm, controlled, but every nerve under my skin hummed like live wire. They stepped inside. Their eyes scanned the space, the photographs, the polished wood, the life I had built without them. Delia's mouth curled in what might have been a smile, or envy. It's beautiful, she said. You've done well. I worked hard, I said flatly. What do you want? They exchanged a glance. And then the name I hadn't heard spoken in years came from Delia's lips. It's about Evan. The room tightened. He's going through a divorce, she continued, tone measured, as if reciting from a script. There are children. 2 of them. He's fighting for custody, but the court is questioning his stability. He needs a steady home, a job, something to prove he can provide. Her words hung in the air, the setup waiting for its punchline. And? I asked. And you could help him, my father said. His eyes finally met mine. They were tired, watery, but behind them lingered the same cowardice I remembered, the man who looked away when I begged him to believe me. I laughed. Sharp, humorless. Help him? You mean the boy whose lie made you throw me out at 17? The boy who wanted my room so badly he invented a crime? That's who you're here for. My father flinched. Delia didn't. He was 14. A child. You know how dramatic teenagers can be. Perhaps you misremember the details. Misremember? I said, my voice cold. Do you really think I could forget the night you banished me from my own home? Delia lifted her chin. We made the best choice we could for the family. For your family, I corrected. Not mine. My father cleared his throat, as if swallowing stones. Please, Mara. He needs a chance. He's their father. The children deserve stability. For a long moment, I simply looked at them. At the faces that once condemned me, now here on their knees in everything but posture. I thought of Evan at 14, smirking as I packed my bag. I thought of myself at 17, rain-soaked, wondering where I would sleep. And I thought of this house, every wall paid for by hours of sweat, every inch proof that I had survived. Something inside me shifted, not forgiveness, not pity, but a cold, deliberate clarity. You want me to give him shelter, I said. You want me to offer him a job. You want me to polish his image so he can convince a judge he's stable. Yes, my father said softly. We're asking for your help. I let the silence stretch until even Delia's practiced composure began to crack. Maybe I'll help, I said at last. Relief flickered across my father's face. Delia straightened, already calculating. But not for him, I added. Not for you. If I help, it will be on my terms. And I promise you this, it won't be the mercy you're hoping for. The words landed like a blade. For the first time that morning, I saw uncertainty in Delia's eyes. My father's lips parted, but no words came. The ghosts had returned, and they wanted my house, my name, my labor. But I wasn't 17 anymore. I wasn't standing in the rain with nowhere to go. I had the power now. And if they thought I'd hand it over easily, they hadn't learned a thing. The following afternoon, my doorbell rang again. I already knew who it would be. This time it wasn't just my father and Delia. It was Evan himself. I opened the door slowly, deliberately, because part of me wanted him to see exactly what stood between us now, the threshold of my home, the one I had built without a cent or a shred of support from the people standing on my porch. He had changed, of course. 15 years carves new shapes into people. At 29, he looked older than his years, tired eyes, a little too much weight around his jaw, a posture that screamed defeat. But the smirk I remembered from that night, the one he wore as I packed my bag at 17, was still there in the corners of his mouth, softened now into something he probably thought looked like charm. "Mara," he said, his voice warm, rehearsed. "It's been a long time." "Not long enough," I replied. Delia nudged him forward, like a lawyer pushing a reluctant client onto the witness stand. My father hovered just behind, avoiding my eyes as usual. "Can we come in?" Evan asked. "You can stand there," I said. "It's more fitting." His smile faltered. "Look, I know things were complicated when we were kids. But I'm in a difficult place right now. I just want a chance to explain." "Explain?" I let the word hang, sharp and ugly. "Do you mean explain how you lied? How you accused me of something unspeakable so you could have my bedroom? Or do you mean explain how your lie destroyed the only family I had left?" His face twitched. I was 14. I didn't know what I was saying. "That's convenient," I shot back. "You knew enough to weaponize it. You knew exactly which words would make them turn on me. And you knew you'd get what you wanted." "Mara, please," my father said weakly. "Bringing up the past won't change. Won't change the fact that you threw me out without a second thought." I interrupted, finally turning on him. "That you believed a sulking child over your own daughter? Don't you dare tell me the past doesn't matter. The past is the reason we're standing here." Evan's jaw tightened. "You're still so dramatic. You've always made everything about you." My laugh came bitter and sharp. "About me? Evan, your lies were about me. My whole life got rewritten because you wanted a bigger room. I lost my father, my home, my place in the world. I built myself from nothing while you coasted on the sympathy you didn't deserve." Delia bristled. "Enough. We're here for the children, not to rehash old grievances." I turned to her, my eyes cold. "You trained him well, Delia. He learned from you how to play the victim, how to twist the truth, how to smile while someone else is being punished. Congratulations. You got rid of me. But here I am. And you're the ones at my door begging." That word, begging, made Evan flinch. He dropped his act for a moment, his voice edged with anger. "You think you're better than me just because you got lucky? Because you had people take you in? Lucky?" My voice rose, steady but sharp. "Lucky is not sleeping on a friend's couch at 17 because your family decided you were disposable. Lucky is not working 2 jobs to pay for textbooks because your father wouldn't send a dime. Lucky is not crying in the dark wondering if the world will ever see you as anything but broken. I am not lucky. I'm relentless. And you," I let my eyes sweep him up and down, "are exactly what you've always been, a liar looking for someone else to clean up your mess." He shifted, embarrassed, his gaze darting to Delia and then my father. They wanted to intervene, but the silence between us was louder than anything they could say. "Here's the truth," I continued, stepping closer to the threshold. "You don't deserve my help. You don't deserve to stand on this porch. But you're here. And maybe, just maybe, I'll give you what you're asking for. Not because you deserve it. But because I want to watch you squirm. Evan's face hardened. So you'll help me, then? I let the pause stretch until the tension snapped like glass underfoot. Oh, I'll help, I said finally, my tone smooth, deliberate. But not the way you think. And the look in his eyes told me he knew, just as I did, that what was coming wasn't mercy. It was justice, 15 years in the making. The three of them stood in my doorway like defendants waiting for a verdict. Evan tried to wear confidence, but it slid off him in fragments. Delia's jaw was clenched so tight I thought she might crack a tooth. My father kept shifting his weight, glancing at me, then away, like a man who knows the sentence but can't bear to hear it spoken aloud. You said you'd help, Evan said at last, his voice careful. So, how? I folded my arms. Yes. I'll help. But not because you deserve it. I'll help because I decide who wins in this house. You took that power from me once. You won't again. Delia narrowed her eyes. What exactly are you suggesting? My terms, I said evenly. If Evan wants a job at my firm, he works at the bottom. Reception, filing, cold calls no one else wants to make. No title, no prestige. Minimum wage. And every task he completes will be checked twice by my assistant. That's insulting, Evan snapped. No, I corrected. That's fair. You want to prove to a court you can provide? Then start by proving you can hold a real job without someone cleaning up after you. For once in your life, earn something. Delia bristled. You're twisting this into some sort of punishment. I turned to her, calm as ice. Punishment is being thrown out at 17 because you believed a lie. Punishment is crying in the rain while the people who should have defended me locked the door. What I'm offering him is mercy. My father finally spoke, voice trembling. And the housing? I almost laughed. Housing? You think I'd hand him a key to my home after what happened? No. If he wants stability, I'll arrange a rental. 1 bedroom, modest, paid for by him. I'll co-sign to satisfy the court, but the bills will be his responsibility. Miss a payment, and the deal dies. Evan's face flushed. You're treating me like a criminal. I stepped closer, meeting his eyes until he looked away. You framed me as one, Evan. For 15 years, I carried the stain of a crime I never committed. You made sure my father saw me as dangerous. You took my home, my family, my safety. Now you want me to save you? You don't get rescued without paying a price. Delia's voice rose, sharp. Mara, this is your brother. No, I said coldly. Brothers protect. Brothers tell the truth. He is not my brother. He is the boy who exiled me, grown into a man who wants me to forget it. The silence that followed was suffocating. My father looked as though the floor had tilted under him. Delia's lips pressed into a thin line. Evan's smirk was gone, in its place, pure resentment. So? I asked. Do you accept my terms? Evan clenched his fists. And if I don't? Then you walk away with nothing, I said. And when the court asks why you couldn't secure housing or stable work, you can tell them the truth, you burned every bridge you had. Starting with me. For a moment, no one spoke. Then my father, voice hoarse, said, Evan, maybe it's the best option. Delia whipped her head toward him, furious. You can't be serious. She's humiliating him. He humiliated me first, I said quietly. Evan finally muttered, fine. I'll do it. I smiled, not warmly, not kindly, but the smile of someone who had waited 15 years to hear surrender in his voice. Good, I said. We'll start Monday. 8 a.m., don't be late. I closed the door on their faces before any of them could answer. Inside, the silence of my house pressed in, but it wasn't heavy. It was triumphant. For the first time since I was 17, I wasn't the outcast, the exile, the disposable daughter. I was in control. And this was only the beginning. Monday, 8:05 a.m. Evan was already late. Not by much, but enough to make a point. He walked into the office wearing a wrinkled shirt, tie too loose, carrying himself like someone convinced the world owed him grace. My team looked up from their desks. They didn't know the full story, but they knew one thing: no one strolled in late on their first day at Quinn Realty. "Nice of you to join us," I said from the doorway of my glass-walled office. My voice carried just far enough to make the entire floor glance up. Evan flushed, tugged at his collar, and muttered, "Traffic." "Then tomorrow," I said, "leave earlier." I handed him a folder thick with papers. "Your first task, cold calls. This list is 200 names. People who once expressed interest in buying, selling, or renting. Most won't answer. The ones who do will probably hang up. Your job is to smile into the phone anyway and ask the questions on page 1. Scripted. Do not improvise." His jaw tightened. "Seriously? Cold calls? That's where everyone starts," I cut in. "Unless you think you're too good for it?" He swallowed his pride and sat down at the spare desk by reception. For the next hour, the office hummed with the sound of phones clicking and Evan's stilted voice reading lines he clearly despised. Twice he forgot the script. Once, he accidentally hung up on a lead. By the 5th rejection, he slammed the receiver down and cursed under his breath. "Language," I said sharply, appearing behind him. "This is a professional office. If you can't handle rejection, you can't handle real estate." The receptionist, Kendra, hid a smile behind her monitor. She'd been with me for 3 years, seen me drag this agency from obscurity into respectability. She understood exactly what was happening. Evan wasn't just a new hire. He was a lesson. By noon, his stack of call sheets was still mostly blank. I gave him his next assignment anyway. "Lunch break?" he asked hopefully. "You can eat while you work," I said, handing him a crate of property brochures. "Alphabetize these, update the expired listings, and cross-check with the digital system. Every typo costs us clients. I expect 0 mistakes." He stared at the box. "This is grunt work." I leaned close, my voice low so only he could hear. "Exactly. Grunt work is where I started. Grunt work is how you prove yourself. Do it, or leave. But remember, the court will want to know why your employment lasted less than 1 day." The color drained from his face. He picked up the box. My agents moved around him like he was invisible, but I could feel their curiosity. Later, I knew, they'd whisper in the break room, "Why is Mara riding him so hard? Who is he really?" And maybe I'd tell them. Or maybe I'd let the story unravel itself the way truth always does, slowly, inevitably. By 3 o'clock, Evan's tie was gone, his sleeves rolled up, his temper fraying. He came into my office with the stack of brochures, slamming them onto my desk. "Done." I flipped through the first 5. 3 errors. Wrong dates, wrong spelling, a missing price. "You had one job," I said quietly. His face reddened. "This is ridiculous. You're setting me up to fail." I looked up at him, meeting his eyes until he had to look away. "No, Evan. I'm showing you what accountability feels like. Something you've never known. 15 years ago, you lied and I paid the price. Now, you tell the truth and you pay the price. That's called balance." He clenched his fists, breathing hard. "You're enjoying this?" "Yes," I said simply. "I am." The honesty disarmed him. He opened his mouth, then shut it again. For the first time all day, he looked less like the smirking boy who stole my life and more like a man finally realizing what it means to lose control. "Go fix the errors," I said, sliding the stack back to him. "You'll stay until it's right. And tomorrow, you'll be on time." He left my office, the door clicking shut behind him. I watched him through the glass as he slumped back at his desk, shoulders bent. My team kept working, pretending not to see, but I saw. I saw everything. For 15 years, I had carried silence. Now, every hour he spent under my roof was a confession written without words. And this was only day one. Evan showed up on Friday looking more desperate than before. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes shadowed from lack of sleep, and the cocky tone he had used on his first day was gone. He was quieter now, broken down by the phone calls, the filing, the constant corrections. He hadn't realized yet that all of this was leading him into the real trap. "Sit," I told him, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. My father and Delia were there too, hovering in the doorway, watching me with guarded eyes. They had no idea that what they thought was salvation was actually the endgame. I slid a stack of papers across the desk. The contract was thick, bound, official. Evan frowned at it. "What's this?" "Employment and housing agreement," I said smoothly. "Exactly what you've been begging for. A job here, minimum wage, probationary, subject to weekly review, and a rental property in your name. Everything you need to prove stability to the court." His eyes lit up. "Really?" "Yes," I said, leaning back in my chair. "Really? But there are conditions. You'll notice page 3 outlines your responsibilities. Rent is due on the 1st of every month. Utilities are on you. Miss one payment, and the contract terminates automatically. Page 5 clarifies that your employment here is at will. Failure to meet basic performance standards results in termination. No severance, no exceptions." Delia frowned. "That seems harsh." I met her eyes. "Harsh? No. Exact. This is how the real world works, Delia. Something your son has avoided his whole life." Evan flipped through the pages, his brow furrowing as he realized the web he was walking into. "This is a lot." "Of course it is," I said. "Do you think stability comes without sacrifice? Do you think responsibility is optional? You wanted me to help. This is help. But it's help with strings, and every string is tied to your honesty and work ethic. For the first time in your life, Evan, you will carry the weight of your own choices." He glanced at my father, who looked sick, pale. "Dad?" Edward Quinn shifted uncomfortably. "If this is what it takes, son, then maybe it's what you have to do." Delia hissed under her breath, but said nothing. Evan's hand shook slightly as he reached for the pen. He knew. I could see it in his eyes. He knew he was signing away more than an agreement. He was signing away his pride, his freedom, his illusion of being in control. He was locking himself into a cage with my name engraved on the bars. I watched him put his name on the dotted line. Slow, reluctant strokes of the pen. When it was done, I pulled the papers back toward me and slipped them into the folder with a smile. "Congratulations," I said, my tone razor sharp. "You're officially employed and officially housed. And officially mine to manage." He stared at me, face tight with anger and humiliation. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" "Yes," I said softly. "More than you'll ever know." Delia bristled. "You can't just." "I can," I interrupted. "Because he agreed. Because he signed. Because 15 years ago you all wrote me off like trash, and now you're standing in my office watching your golden boy reduced to paperwork and probation." The silence that followed was thick, heavy, final. Evan stood slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at my father. He just stared at the door as if freedom lay somewhere beyond it. But the truth was clear, he had no freedom anymore. Not while his job, his home, his custody battle all rested in my hands. And that was the beauty of it. I didn't need to scream, or throw him out into the rain the way they once did to me. I just needed to let him live inside the walls of a cage I had built, brick by brick, rule by rule. I smiled, closing the folder. Welcome to adulthood, Evan. Welcome to accountability. He left without a word. My father lingered for a moment, his eyes wet, searching my face for something: mercy, forgiveness, maybe even pride. But he found nothing he recognized. "Goodbye, Dad," I said softly. He lowered his head and followed Delia out. The office was quiet again. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the signed contract, at the proof that the boy who once exiled me was now bound by my rules. Was it justice? Revenge? Balance? Maybe all three. Maybe none. All I knew was that after 15 years, I had finally closed the circle. And whether Evan realized it yet or not, he would live every day with the knowledge that his survival depended on the mercy of the sister he betrayed. That was enough. For now.